Let's go ahead and get started. Get this turned on. I have the first thing to show you up here is that I've added something to Blackboard. In the group projects area under project number 2, I've added a example project. So this will come up here. I can show you this. This example project is what I consider an exemplary. In fact, when I graded this particular project, I ended up giving extra credit points because they went above and beyond what I think is required. So if you look at the requirements, there's more here than what was actually required, which is why they got extra credit points. But if we look at this project2.pdf, this PDF file is showing you what was originally generated with PowerPoint. It's not necessary that you use PowerPoint. That's just what this group happened to work with. If you want to use PowerPoint, that's fine. If you want to use Microsoft Word or OpenOffice or anything else like that, that's fine too. The way this was set up, what I did is I put this in a PDF so you can see it. I also changed things, so I don't think it was actually there. Little Curly and Shemp that did this. But you can see they've got things well organized. And again, it's not necessary to be this organized, but I want to see good organization so that when I look at it, I know what's what. When I get down here into the individual sections, I can clearly see that this is the work that was done for Larry, and so I can tell whose work is whose out of all of it. You can see that they have graphics, statistics, and some discussion of results in here. They'll have appropriate graphics for the individual variables, appropriate statistics for individual variables. So you can see that they have all this in here. And then they summarized at the end to talk about major results and conclusions. Now, I don't specify that you have to have an overall set of results plus individual results. If you have either or, it's fine. The main thing I'm looking for is that you have some conclusions that you're drawing from your work. If I only see a total results for the whole project, that means everybody's going to get the same score for results. Otherwise, I'll apply it individually, depending on what you put in there. And so, quick questions on this at all? So again, this is an exemplary example of the report for Project 2, and it goes beyond what I say is necessary. So, but it gives you some kind of idea of what kind of organization I would like to see and the kinds of things I'd like to see doing with it. And certainly you don't have to go to the level they did here with the way they laid out some of the graphics pages and things like that. Try to be neat and organized so that it's easy to read, but you don't have to go quite to this level if you don't want to. Any questions? Okay. I've got a fair amount to cover. What I want to do today is I'm going to talk about the case of two proportions. This is case number 2 or module 2 in your textbook. And what we're going to be able to do is we're going to actually cover everything out of that section today. It's actually material from chapters 9, 10, and 12. And you'll find that most of what I'm going to talk about is actually quite familiar. So if you would please turn off your monitors while we're going through this. That way we don't have too many distractions going on. With every case that we've had, we have a population that we start from. This is the population that we're trying to learn about. In Module 1, that population had a proportion in it that we're interested in. That would be the proportion of some characteristic that we're interested in. Their political affiliation, for example, the proportion of Democrats, or it might be the just about anything. So anything that's categorical that you can put into counting people in a particular category or with a particular label, we could apply this to. So we started out with a single proportion. And what we're going to extend this to is the case where instead of having what I would call a simple population, which means looking at everybody at once, we're going to take the population and we're going to split it into 2 subgroups. Now, these are independent subgroups. Independent means that an individual can be in either one group or the other, but they cannot be in both. Okay? So for example, male and female is an obvious way to break down a population. If you have more than two possible categories, for example, if you're looking at political affiliation, you might have Democrat, Republican, and Independent. If you have something like that, what you would do is focus on just two of those. So you might toss out the Independents, and all we're looking at is Democrat versus Republican. So we're looking at two separate groups. And instead of having just one P, we now have a P1 and a P2. So there's potentially a proportion within each group. Okay? When we do this, just like we've done right along, we're going to sample from this. We're going to take a sample. This sample is going to reflect that population. It's representative. That means that it will also be separated into groups 1 and 2. You'll have an N1 and N2, so there will be a certain number from each of the original population subgroups. You'll have a P1 hat, which is simply the sample proportion calculated within that particular subgroup in the sample. Absolutely nothing different than what we've had for single proportion. I just have two of them now. Okay. As before, we're going to want to do our inference back to this original population. Our inference can be just like before, a confidence interval or a hypothesis test. So what we're going to go with this is we're going to start working on the table. This is module number 2. Difference in proportions. I need to have a parameter. My parameter before was simply P. If I'm interested in comparing these two proportions, P1 and P2, what does it make sense that my parameter would be? What's the quickest and easiest way to compare P1 and P2 with a single number? Don't think so hard about it. If I want to create a single number that compares P1 and P2, what would I do? Okay, we want to know whether they're equal, but we also want to know whether they are one's greater than the other one, how much greater than the other one. So what would I come up with?